What's up, guys? Welcome back to another home theater hangout with yours truly. And we are joined by Kellen and Mr. Phil Jones of Massimo, aka also known as Definitive Technology, Denim Marantz, Bowers and Wilkins, other brands as well.
So how are you guys?
Very good, very good. Nice to see you again, Phil. It's been, I think the last time I saw you was at last year at the TV shootout.
Yes, yes. We need to do more of these so we can. There's a lot of different products that we can definitely talk about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But today we are going to get into probably one of my new favorite speakers that's been around for quite some time now. And listen, when I had mentioned this on a previous live stream, but when I used to work at Best Buy, Definitive Technology was always kind of like a mainstay of Best Buy Magnolia.
Hmm.
And, those rooms were never conducive enough, I think, to make usage of those speakers. So I never actually gotten a chance to hear them before. But luckily, I now have gotten a chance to use them for quite an extensive period of time in my home theater and also in my living room. And they did wonders in that room. I heard them at a show recently. And I said before, I thought they were probably the best sounding speakers at that show, sounding better than, I don't want to name other brands, maybe Monitor Audio, which costs several $1,000s more. But I thought they were like the best ones there, especially when
Yeah.
you had like, their full range with the
Hmm.
built-in subs, and you guys had them set up with the LCR, the surrounds, the backs, and then the angled overhead Atmos channels, and I thought it was just like great sounding. Paired up with that, what you got behind you there, the AV10. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the benefits of Definitive. The having the powered subwoofers built in to the towers means that you can get a level of output, a level of bass response, an impact that you would normally not be able to achieve with most speakers because that poor little amplifier, no matter how big it is, has to play all of the frequencies and handle all of the load. And we know that bass is quite challenging. So if you take, like we like to do, six towers plus four subwoofers, the amount of impact you get is very, very good. Plus, we know multiple subwoofers in a room equals out the bass, and you end up with deeper, not only deeper bass, but more even response throughout the room. So there's plenty of benefits to having powered subs built in.
Oh yeah, for sure. One question I had on that, I don't know if you know the answer to it, but I think the previous generation there was like an LFE input on it, but I don't. I guess not the model that I have, and maybe the
Yeah,
other ones.
we
They,
took that off. I'll tell you that the engineers have always did not like the fact that it had LFE on it, because the LFE was just there because people say, well, if it's a powered, it's got powered woofers in it. How come I have to? Why doesn't it have a subwoofer connection? The issue with the LFE is the engineers work hard to blend the bass drivers with the mid-range driver, the mid-bass driver, to make that blend very, very seamless. And
yeah.
what you'll notice is even if you turn up, we do this experiment all the time. You take a song that has a male vocal in it, and then you play that male vocal. If you go and you turn up the sub or the bass driver, what happens is the bass gets fuller, but the voice doesn't get like this. It doesn't turn basically Michael Jackson into Barry White. Because as you increase the level, it changes the crossover slope. So to ensure that it does not impede with the mid-range and the bass. LFE does not give you that. So that the integration between the bass side and the high frequency side is significantly better if you do not use the LFE. So all you do is you tell your system that your speakers are large, and it will
Mm.
redirect that LFE information to your main channels anyway, and you still get the same benefit, but you get much better bass blending, which is very noticeable when you're playing music.
What would you say? What would you tell people that are interested in doing that kind of towers, these kind of towers, as like surround speakers as well, instead of just like left and right? Like, are you running everything full range still, or what would you recommend? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at when you look at a multi-channel track, 5.1, 7.1, Dolby Atmos, DTS, all of that stuff, the all the tracks have the same quality. What they do is if they want a bomb to go off in the back, that rear channel is still full range, and maybe they will send some extra bass to the LFA. Having full range all the way around means that impacts come from the direction behind you. So
Yeah.
when we're doing, we always do things like the Unbroken and movies like that and combat scenes, and having a tower speaker with a powered sub or power bass driver behind you, it adds a realism to the scene. So to me, if in a perfect world, I would run full range everywhere
Yeah.
plus the LFA.
Right, right,
But
right.
most people don't have the space for that.
Yeah, correct. I know me and Gene got into this a while back, and I was like, dude, I said, if your speakers can go full range, we got powered towers,
Hmm.
you can feel the impact of explosions like in the back corner, behind you, side of you, whatever. Because, these Atmos channels, they can run full range. So why would you not take advantage of that, especially if you got the space? And he was just like, no, you don't have to do that. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, you want to do it. That's the
Yeah.
reason why people like the the definitive technology demos in the rooms.
Yeah.
Is they go, why does it hit so hard?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it so dynamic? And that's because we run everything. We run everything full range. And I mean, even the center channel
Yeah.
has a subwoofer. So while even though we don't run that all the way down, you could run it a lot lower than what you would run any other center channel that's on the market right now.
Yeah, for sure. When I was doing the review, I did the demo with the Rise of Skywalker. Palpatine has a big
Hmm.
bassy voice,
Hmm.
and not many speakers, if it's not crossed over like 80 or 100 hertz, can really reproduce that because it
Hmm.
just sounds like really thin.
Hmm.
But with that, with the sub built into it, I mean, it's just like
Hmm.
it's real full. I
Hmm.
mean, you can really feel it at the front of the room. It really just comes at you. It's real thick and heavy, and I'm gonna say like I compared it to like the Per Listen, which is like a $7,000 center channel
Hmm.
speaker, and this one gives you it's like just as deep, if not a little bit deeper than that.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's real impressive. Which many people, they don't think their center channel has actual bass out of it. That
Yeah.
they kind of rely on handing it over to the left and right channels. But
Yeah.
listen, bass is important for that center channel.
Yeah, all of our reference centers systems, especially ones that when we use one that has a acoustically transparent screen, like our theaters,
Yeah,
we run subs like our main theater right now has a giant main with a 15-inch subwoofer just for the center channel.
yeah,
Because you got to remember that a large majority of what you're listening to comes from that center, and having that when it pans over, it's just so much smoother when that
yeah.
big car truck goes from left to right to have that channel just be full range if you possibly can.
Yeah. So speaking of the center channel, why don't we start off with like what models you have in the Dimension lineup? Starting
Okay.
from like the entry level, and then up to like the flagship, and
Okay.
why would you start the entry level and end up at the
Okay.
flag?
So if you look at the speakers, we have our main part of we have this set of dimension towers, and dimension towers will start with something like a DM40. This is a passive unit, and the DM40 still has front and rear drivers on it. It gives you the ability to do bipolar. That it would be like your smaller bookshelf, your smaller floor standing speaker. In a lot of smaller rooms, apartments, condos, this is pretty much a great speaker for playing music on if you don't need that extra bass, right? As you move up, you start getting into something like a DM60, and now we start adding powered subs. So a DM60 now adds a powered subwoofer, an 8-inch powered subwoofer to it. Still has your front and rear firing tweeter, your front and rear firing mid-bass drivers to give you bipolar, but now we're adding that the subwoofer with the bass radiator, subwoofer on one side, bass radiator on the other, right? As you move up the system to something like a 70, the cabinet gets bigger, the drivers, the mid-bass drivers get bigger, and you get a 10-inch subwoofer and a 10-inch passive radiator. Then you move up to the big guy, which is the DM90, DM80, and that has the big sub, at a 12-inch plus a 12-inch plus 12-inch passive radiators. We use actually a lot of speakers. We have twice the amount of passive radiators as we actually have active woofers. So if you look at this DM80, there's actually two 12-inch passive radiators in it because the amount of air, you're trying to take that air pressure that's inside of that cabinet, and by using two passive radiators, it's much more efficient at utilizing that energy because we're trying to move as much air as possible. to pressurize the room. So I always say think of a DM80 as you're basically buying a really nice floor standing speaker plus maybe a DN12 subwoofer all in one slim cabinet. Um, all of the speakers utilize bipolar. That is a premise of this particular company. So when the company came out, the goal was to provide a wide, spacious sound, right, with a wide sweet spot, and give you bass that was flexibility in bass. So, for example, a lot of times even in a house, you may have one speaker closer to a wall than another. Well, that's going to impact the bass performance of the speaker. Being able to use being able to use active subs, you can actually turn the one down that's close to the wall and the one up that isn't. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in optimizing and getting as much bass as you possibly can from your room. It makes it easier for your amplifier to drive. It doesn't have to work on the bass. So we give you better bass, and then the bipolar gives you more openness. This new one, by the way, we used to use what's called forward focus bipolar, Shane, which is what you probably remember from when you were your days at Best Buy and Magnolia, where the rear drivers were actually attenuated about 6 dB from the front. This new speaker gives you the option of doing full bipolar, the equal amount coming out the front and the back, or a little bit more coming out the front if you want more of a focused image. Great speakers. And then, of course, we have the three center channels. Right now, I can't remember the big model numbers right now. I have to think about them because I don't do them off the top of my head all the time. But I believe that the big center is what's the model number, Shane? Do you remember what it's called? I think it's called a
DM30.
DM30. Now, the DM30 has a powered subwoofer built into it. So this is a big center channel. And we just talked about the fact that you want a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the information comes from the center. So having that big center channel with the powered sub in it does a really good job of ensuring that the dialogue is clear and impactful and it's more localized coming from the middle of the room. Then you also have one called a DM20. That's kind of a slim center because this is for someone who was looking for something that would fit under that a flat panel TV and not block it. So it's sitting up on top of the cabinet right below the TV. We don't want to block it. Then there's the DM10, and what they did with this guy, this has 2 mid-bass drivers and a 9-inch passive radiator, but that passive radiator is not powered. But the goal of this one was there's a certain amount of space that fits in those little center channel holes, and it's designed to fit exactly in there. So think of it as 3 applications. I need to tuck it in that center channel hole that is in my entertainment center. I need something that'll sit on top of my entertainment center without blocking my my TV, or I just want the Godzilla of center channels, and that's what a DM30. The DM30 will actually play lower than most people's full range, large speakers in their home.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other little pieces, like we have a height speaker called, I think it's called a DM90. So the DM90 is kind of a little speaker that goes on the wall that could be used for heights if you want to mount. Actually, if you want to mount it on the wall, right? Actually, the DM90 is the one that sits on top. Duh. I have one over here. So many people cannot, or maybe do not want to mount speakers in the ceiling. And that's where the DM90 comes in. You could put this right on top of one of the towers, and then it's a Dolby Atmos height speaker, so it ricochets the sound off the ceiling. And then lastly would be the DM95, and that is the guy that fits on the wall.
Philip, do you guys have an architectural line that follows the same, I guess, materials and builds as the Dimension series?
I'm glad you brought that up. If you look at our speakers, our goal is to make sure that everything in the lineup, from our dimensions to our architectural speakers, are timbre
Co-
matched. A lot of times they'll use a good tweeter on the top model and an okay tweeter in the middle and everything else. And that's not how we do it. They all use the same aluminum oxide tweeter. They use the same BDSS driver, which is basically it's a mid bass driver with two surrounds on it. One near where you would normally see like the cone, and then
Yeah.
one along the outside, which base allows it to play bigger, play louder without distorting. The nice thing is because we use those same components, whether you're buying a Dimension Tower or you're buying one of the new custom integration in walls, it all matches. So you basically buy the piece for your application. You may use the DM90 height modules in the front, but you may use an in wall in the back for your or an in ceiling for your rear heights, and you can mix and match the entire lineup of definitive speakers, all of them, and you know that when that plane goes from the left to the right, it's going to sound the same.
No, that's one thing I definitely wanted to bring up because I think you guys do a really good job of keeping your entire line cohesive and true to kind of what definitive technology is all about in terms of your the tech that's going into your speakers and also the performance. So
Yeah, I mean these engineers work hard. The goal of the definitive has always been to give you well exceed your expectations sonically, and,
right,
and and give you as much flexibility as possible. If you look at it, it's a lot of form follows function. If you look at a DT definitive technology speaker, it just has this sock that goes all the way around it. And they go, why don't you put grills on it? Well, the thing has speakers everywhere. It's got speakers on the side, speakers on the front, speakers in the back, And in order to give you to cover all that stuff and make it look really nice, the sock just works, right? The nice thing about them too is that black sock, that very understated appearance, means that it blends in. Some people want their speakers to stand out, but a lot of consumers just want the big experience without it screaming at you. So when you look at one of these speakers, they could be quite large, like the big DM80. But when you stick it in a room, it doesn't overwhelm the particular space.
I was looking at the in ceiling. I see that you have them angled. What I had a subscriber ask me, what would it work if you were to do an LCR with those kind of ceiling speakers that are angled towards the listening position, or because you couldn't make it work with just standard speakers to the left, right, and center. Would it be very noticeable if you had a in ceiling speakers that were just aimed directly at you, mounted
That
above
is
your
that,
television?
that is a good question. We were actually going to do a 5.1 Atmos demonstration with all in ceilings, because what you could do is you can use three of the angled ones or five of the angled ones, and the angle will lower the soundstage, right? So
Hmm.
now use five of those, and it would lower the soundstage so the voice is coming from the location of the TV, lower on the wall. Then we use just downfiring Dolby Atmos in four downfirings in the wall, so basically nine in the ceiling. And what you would get is you would still get that kind of dome of sound that you get from Dolby Atmos, but it could all be in the ceiling. So yeah, you could do that. And what I use them for is my living room. The ceiling is vaulted like this, right? And I'm sitting in the lower spot, and the ceiling just continues to go like that. Well, what I did was I took the angled one and I stuck them in my vaulted ceiling, and now because of the angle, they're firing straight down. So it allowed me to actually aim, instead of the sound being fired away from me because my ceiling is angled like this and the sound is firing away from me because the speaker is angled. Now they're firing down. So there's lots of applications that you can utilize an angled in ceiling for.
Right, 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 right. Okay, yeah. So that's like a common question I get sometimes. Is like, hey, do you think I'm gonna notice it if I'm doing all in ceiling speakers all the way around? Am I really gonna notice it? I mean, I think I would probably notice it.
Yeah, you
yeah,
would
I
notice
think
it, but
Yeah,
but we always say something is better than nothing.
worst
yeah,
case scenario, if that's what you can do, it's still a good experience.
yeah.
Optimally, you'll want your LCRs lower. But um, Definitive Technologies, there's brands that have the angled speakers, and they do a pretty good job of
Mhm,
convincing you that the sound is coming from a lower point
mhm.
or reference point. So
Exactly. And the goal is just to give people options, like we talk about. Best way to do it, we all know, you get the best way, period, pair of floor standing, everything on the floor, away from the walls, acoustically treated room, multiple subwoofers. That's the dream, right? But
yeah,
that's not what most people are going to get, right? The next thing is, all right, well, if I can't do everything on the floor, well, let me do a combination of stuff in the walls and in the ceilings and on the floor. And if I can't do that, and I got to do everything in the ceiling, I can still get a good experience. The goal is, we always say, do not remove, reduce. You work your way down until you get the best sound you can in your space. But regardless, it's going to be better than any TV you're ever going to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the subwoofers
Hmm.
a little bit. I didn't request. Actually, I did request the DN15, but I don't think that was available at the time. But yeah, because when I heard about
That
the show,
subwoofer is an absolute
yeah,
animal. So uh, the if you we've always had this kind of combination of active drivers and passive radiators, right? And the subwoofers still use that as well. So there's basically a couple of sizes. You have your small guy, which is called a DN8, 500-watt amplifier, 8-inch woofer, and two 8-inch passive bass radiators. Then you move up to the DN10, 500-watt amplifier, 10-inch woofer, 10-inch passive radiators. Then you go to a DN12, 1500-watt amplifier, 12-inch woofer, 12-inch passive radiator, and then the big boy, which is the DN15, which is the 1500-watt, 15-inch woofer, 15 and dual 15-inch passive radiators. We always say big box, big amp, right? Big woofer, choose two, right? We chose all three. And because of that, it is a very big subwoofer, but the things are absolutely effortless. We actually have two theaters that we have, two reference theaters, one in this building, and then one in our new in the Massimo headquarters in Irvine. In our building, we're using two 4D and 12s, and people think that they're on a roller coaster ride in that space because of the woofers that were the amount of bass. Because a DN12, because of the bass radiators and the active woofer, can move the air of a traditional 15-inch woofer. A DN15 can move air that exceeds that you would get from an 18. So four of those is what we have in the Irvine building for a theater that seats like 25 people, and the amount of bass is just shocking. So they're great. I think if you ever had a chance to get a DN15, you should get one. It's an experience, but it's a big box, my friend. It's a
yeah,
very big box. So
yeah. I heard you had them. You had them like four of them paired up with. I think, but I don't know if they were all DM70s or DM80s, but they're rocking, boy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Every trade show we bring four DM15s. Why? Because we can.
yeah,
I mean, do you really need six floor standing main speakers with a 12-inch subwoofers built in plus
yeah.
four 15s? No. But when you're trying to do a theater and a demonstration and a trade show, why not? You know?
Yeah, that's what I mean, man. I was like, man, because I was just blown away by definitive technology. Just like, I was like, this is just the dev tech room. I
Yeah.
was like, I remember them from Best Buy. It's not gonna be that good. Then I was like, oh my god, these are so stinking good.
Yeah, yeah. I
this
mean,
is after this is after we came from the Kef room and the monitor audio room, and I think there was something else. I think the most expensive room was like probably the most underwhelming, and I think you I think DevTech was like the most affordable room. I think it was like I don't know how much it was. It wasn't that much money. I mean, it was still a lot of money, but it was like the most affordable out of the bunch, and I was just like, whoa. I was like, Gene, was that the best room we heard or what? He was like, yeah, it was. I was like, wow.
yeah, I mean, the engineers in Maryland at ARAD, we have a facility called ARAD,
Yeah,
Acoustic Research and Design, and they work tirelessly to and continue to improve these speakers. If you look at them, we design our own drivers. We use a lot of science into cabinet designs and things like that. The DSP that goes into the subwoofer crossovers, all of those things they work really 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 hard on to improve them. So this particular speaker, the DSP and amplifiers are all new. So
Yeah.
even if you had a pair of BP towers, these new amplifiers are more powerful, more dynamic, more reliable, and they offer more impact. So not only did they redesign the cabinet from scratch, and they've redesigned the woofer they redesigned the bass driver, and they redesigned the amplification. So the result is even more impressive because I've heard these for the DM80 versus the older BP 9080, and the difference is dramatic. So
Yeah. So the only thing I was just wondering, like, what, like, shouldn't there have been maybe a phase control on the back of the sub, just to make integration
well,
maybe a little bit easier?
well, you got to remember that the way that the system works is unlike a regular subwoofer. This the DSP is designed to the two are worked. It's almost like why don't you put a phase on a passive system? You know what I mean? Because yeah, if it was an LFE, yeah, we're talking about timing and everything else. But
Yeah.
this whole thing has been designed specifically as one system, not an addition that you're trying. Because most of the time you're trying to add a sub, and that is not part of the system with something that is. This
Right.
whole thing from beginning to end, the passive section of the crossover, the active section that crosses the to the bass to the amplification, all from the very beginning was designed to work together. So those phase problems shouldn't be much of an issue.
Right. 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 I would guess, I know the IMAX enhanced spec was like you should probably run all full range speakers all around, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of IMAX enhanced movies out to really take advantage of that feature in your AVRs and processors. But I know I asked you this before off camera, but what would really benefit from this if and when it does come out, or if you happen to have a processor that supports it, is with your new update that you announced over on Audioholics' channel yesterday with Dirac multi-bass management. I don't know if that would work with just full range towers, but I would assume it would probably work with Dirac Art, which I know you were like probably not anytime soon it would come out. But for the system, but with the systems that do have Dirac Art, I would assume that these would be kind of like a perfect speaker to work with
They
that
are.
technology.
They are. Because if you look, a couple things since we're talking about it, we just did an update and we've added some improvements to our how we utilize Dirac. So first thing, if you have Dirac Live, before Dirac Live on a Marantz or Denon AVR, or most AVRs did not, actually our AVRs did not have base management, which meant before you did your Dirac calibration, you had to go in and make and determine what was the crossover points on your speakers. Now, a lot of times we used to upset people because when we used to run Odyssey, we tell you that your speaker was small, and people would be like, "Well, my speaker is 5 feet tall. It's not small." But no, it's we can define small as not being able to play down to 20 hertz. So we've changed that from instead of large and small to full range and frequency limited, right? So most people do not know that their speakers are frequency limited. And how are you going to know exactly how deep your main speakers are going to play? So now with after the firmware update, if you get the basic Dirac Live and you get that license, it will do bass management. So it will go in and figure out the crossover points to between your mains and your subwoofers. Next, you go to direct bass control. It goes beyond just doing setting your crossover points. Now it's dealing with timing, phase, and all of the other things that Direct does great to make sure that you get perfect tight bass. However, when you look at direct bass control, it will apply a high pass filter to your main speakers. So for most people, it's fine because, like I said, I don't care how big your speakers are, unless you're Gene with the Tower of Power. Most people's speakers are not going to play all the way down to 20. When you get to art, active room treatment. Now what you're doing is using the full capabilities of every single speaker to help solve problems from other speakers. And when you get into active room art, then if you have all these speakers that play this low all the way around, that becomes a great option. For many people who buy DT right now or definitive technology, the Odyssey is a great option as well using the multi-QX because you can build target curves for it and you can also redirect your LFE from your, not only go to your subs, but also redirect that LFE to go to these like a pair of DM80s to add basically another pair of subwoofers to your room. So lots of flexibility there when it comes to that.
What's the cost of entry if you want to upgrade your direct live bass management to which devices is that supported on?
Okay, so all of the AVRs that were introduced last year and coming into the future will now have the capability of doing direct live and bass control. You have to, before you get the bass control license, you have to have a direct full or direct limited license first, right? So, and then I believe, I'd have to look at it. I don't remember the pricing off the top of my head, but there's a price for a single sub and a price for multi. Unfortunately, it escapes me right now. I don't want to give these guys the wrong price. But I think let me look here. I can actually look it up while we talk. But if you go to dirac.com/Denon or /Marantz, it will come right up. So if you look there, you see your Dirac Live licenses. You got your, so you have to get one of those two between limited and full. And then once you get one of those two, if you scroll down, then you would see you will see single sub. Thank you very much. Which is how much? $350.
Yep.
And then or multi. So it's a combination of the two. So you would get. So say you wanted limited and multi, that would be the bundles. And that's actually, the prices are right there. Thank you very much, because I have too many things in my head right now.
That's all good. So all right, so single is one subwoofer and then multi is multiple subwoofers.
Exactly. So remember, you could run single and have 4 subs. They just will not be EQ'd. They would not be EQ'd and timed independently. Right. Most receivers that have 4 sub outs or 2 sub outs only EQ the subs, all 4 subs as one. LFE is, so you could connect 4 subs to it, but you wouldn't get the full benefit of 4 subs unless you went to multi.
Right. Okay. And of course the AV10 and the A1H can do 4 subs.
Exactly. Can do 4 subs. So right now we're at bass control. I will tell you that we're always working on improving the performance of the AVRs. So the first thing was, let's verify, make sure it works for Dirac Live, make sure that our DSP, our AVRs, our engineers, their engineers are happy. Then we do that. And now we're working on the bass control, and now everybody, their engineers, our engineers are happy with the performance, and we release that. It does not mean that we're stopping there. It just means that that's where we're at right now.
Okay. But so you have heard direct art with like speakers like a definitive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've heard prototypes.
Obviously on a Denon Marantz product.
Prototype.
Okay. Breaking news. Yeah, I'm excited. It's definitely wait for that to come out and try that with the. I'm gonna have to request some more definitive towers for the theater.
Yeah, more tough. It's like Oprah. You get a sub. Everybody gets a sub, right? So,
yeah, I'm excited for that. And then you brought up something about the Hios app or something. What were you touting?
Yeah.
Touting earlier.
Yes. So last week we did. We had this announcement. It was we called it U32. And that was because it's based on the fact that even though there's been 32 versions of the Hios app, or 32, only some of them are cosmetically different. But we're always working on improving things such as system stability, pairing of stereo surrounds, stereo synchronization, all of those types of stuff. And during that U32 update, once we decided to do everything at once. So we added direct bass control, we updated HEOS, we added Bluetooth transmission to any hi-fi enabled hi-fi piece that has ARC. So you can have, if grandpa wants to listen to a pair of headphones while you listen to your main speakers, while you could actually do that now, which is pretty slick. And then we also added Siri on Denon Home capability, utilizing rooms that had Denon Home speakers in it and maybe an Apple home hub. But we also changed the app. So I love the HEOS app because I that's all I use at work, right? But it's almost like someone who is a PC person. I love a PC, but if you're a Mac person, you'll look at that PC and say, "What the heck are you doing?" Well, most applications operate a certain way. The HEOS application actually predates most streaming services. So the way it was designed works great, but how you operate it was not the way that most people are used to operating music services, whether you have Tidal or Spotify or Amazon Prime or Pandora. They kind of operate a certain way. So the first thing we want to do is let's make sure that we improve its functionality, its capabilities, but also let's make it operate like a modern music app. First thing, music first. Before we would just show you how many rooms you had and how many services you could have. But people just care about music. So there was a lot of steps to get to music. Now music is front and center. So I can actually see what's recent. I can see my favorite stations. Most people do not have multiple music services. So I can highlight one of my favorite service and it's front and center. I get suggestions from new records, playlist suggestions, and then of course along the bottom I have all of my other apps. If so, say Tidal is not my primary service. If at the edit button, I can actually go in and say, you know what, I want Amazon Music to be my primary. And then when I go back, now Amazon Music is my primary. So the goal is just to make it easier for you to get to your music. We also added this cool kind of unified universal search. So what universal search allows me to do is if I'm looking for something right now, back in the days, and I have multiple services. Shane, I'm not sure how many services you have, but I have Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, Pandora. I have a million of them, right? And somebody will ask me, can you play this really esoteric, B cut of this rare artist? And I find myself opening the Spotify app, looking for it, closing it. Opening the Tidal app, looking for it, closing it. And I have to work my way through. Now it is a unified search. So if I go in here and say I just type in Neil Young, what it does is it looks across all of the services that I am subscribed to. And I can see across all my services in one location. So I can see and so right now I have it set for looking for Tidal and Amazon Music. And I can even go in here and I can filter by, do I want to hear just a track, an artist, where do I want it to be? It'll show me if I have Neil Young on servers in my house. It makes it really, really easy, this unified search. So I think this is something that really makes it stand out. So right. A new way of operating HEOS and more capabilities. 64 rooms now.
Oh, wow.
16 of them playing the same thing. I don't know who has 64 rooms.
And you can absolutely zone those out, right?
Yeah. So in this building right now, we have 32 zones because this is our corporate office. So we have engineering, we have back engineering, front of engineering, we have our theater spaces, we have two systems in our theater room, a system in here, lobby, cafe. So we really do kind of stress test this thing. And we do all of our demos from using that. So if you went to all of our hi-fi demos, all of our hi-fi demos in our demo spaces are actually done using HEOS because I can grab Amazon Music 192.24 FLAC files. So I couldn't buy a disc that was better than that. So why wouldn't I just use the service?
Is there ever going to be an update? I don't know if you can do it now, but is there going to be like a time where you can do Heo speakers everywhere for like a 7.1 or even Atmos system?
Well, right now we can do with a Heels. If you look at one of our Heels bars, like a Heels, like a Home 550, that has a receiver and a transmitter, right? So that allows it to be a regular Heels device, but also transmit to other Heels devices. So I can buy a pair of Did Home speakers, and now I have a subwoofer, and now I have a 5.1. In the future, we could expand that. Everybody's asked about having it on a receiver. The biggest challenge of having it on a receiver is now I have to put a Heels receiver transmitter in every receiver, which is going to crank the price up. And it would just be, and the question is there enough demand across all of the channels to raise the price of every AVR to give you wireless speaker capability? You
Right,
know,
right.
but in the future, Heels supports has tons and tons of capabilities. So the possibility is definitely there. It just depends on if there's a demand for it.
So this might be something for a Helios, possible future Helios user. I'm living in an apartment, so I don't need a dedicated system for music. I'm just looking for some combo-ish, like a soundbar that can do both. Can he do several Helios speakers for the same, type of idea, to keep it simple for his apartment, and also get surround as well? Like you don't
Yeah,
need to have a dead on receiver or Marantz.
exactly. So you get a nice Denon Home. Denon Home makes a sound bar that would go into your TV, and then you can get a pair of matching Denon Home 150s, or which would be perfect for your rears. Put them in the back of the room, and you can get a Denon Home wireless subwoofer. And guess what? You can live in a loft, an apartment, no wires being ran. The other thing that you can do is the serial synchronization is really, really good. So like in my living room, my wife did not want any more black boxes. I mean, I got a stereo in my living room, in my theater space. I got a stereo in my office. I got a stereo in our bedroom. She says, in the living room, I don't want to see no more black boxes. No more black boxes. So what I did was I took two Denon Home 250s you get stands for them, and I put one tucked on the left side of the fireplace, kind of near the bushes, and one tucked on the right side of the fireplace, kind of out of the way. And you can pair them together and they'll act like a stereo. So you get perfect stereo imaging, the voice image right in front of the fireplace, like I physically had a stereo, like left and right stereo speakers connected to a receiver. So she's happy, and I can still get on the couch and I can play back a really good stereo presentation. So that's kind of where the future is going.
Oh, nice. So where does the TV plugs into one of the speakers and then it
Yeah,
separates it out from there?
exactly. You can plug it into one of the speakers.
Is it a
So
hub or something, or just a speaker, or is it like they're a hub?
the best way to do it, if you want to, the sound bar is easy because it has HDMI. If you the using just the two speakers to run as a TV, that becomes a challenge. It's possible by using maybe an optical to RCA adapter and then feeding that into one of the speakers.
Got you.
So
Okay.
that would be probably how you would have to do it.
Okay.
But most of the time, people just want the bar
Yeah.
for the TV, and then wireless for the rears, or just two speakers for stereo. In the
Right. Right.
future, that may change. Stand by, but right now, that's the way to go.
Right. Okay. Um. Well, listen, we're coming up just under an hour. I know Kellen's got to run a little bit, and myself too. But Phil, thanks for coming on and talking about the DefTech speakers. Definitely one of my new favorite speakers of the year for 2023. I know some folks had asked me for my previous video what would be a speaker that I would definitely recommend over some other brands. I would definitely say, check out Definitive Technology, especially, with the built-in powered subs, powered woofers with possible direct art coming in the future. Who knows? I don't know. That these speakers will probably really benefit from that kind of technology in your Denon Marantz pre-pro AVR. But Phil, thanks, Kellen. I don't know if you have any more questions for Phil, but if not, man, thanks, Phil.
Well, like I said, I talk a lot. Hope we covered a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, for sure.
But thank you guys for coming. And by the way, if you want to learn more about Dirac and how we integrate it into our Marantz and Denon AVRs, or if you want to learn more about the Definitive Technology speakers, check out my YouTube channel. It's Massimo Consumer Learning, or if you go to Sound United Training, we have a bunch of stuff. So I actually interviewed Scott Orth and Michael Greco, who designed the Dimension Tower. So if you really want to go into it and talk about how they work and what the thought process is, I actually interviewed them at ARAD a few months ago. And of course, if you want to learn, if you want to geek out on some of the other stuff that we talk about, check out that site as well. So got to give myself a little shout out to make sure that my boss continues to let me do those type of videos.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Home Theater Hangout. That's Thursday at 5 o'clock. Thanks, Kellen. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Yep. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.